So the idea of spiritual revolution is one that's kind of gaining traction, and the next retreat here in December is about that. It's called Advanced Training for Spiritual Revolutionaries. So my question is, what really is a spiritual revolutionary, and how will a spiritual revolution differ from the old revolutions that have come and gone and failed, whether they're political or even pseudo-spiritual?
Yeah, well, I think you have said it. They have been political, but they have not been revolutions of consciousness. They have not raised our level of consciousness. And without doing that, there will be no capacity to create a higher order. And so until we get to a level where we are incorruptible beings, and we are attuned to the unified field of the whole, and we are expressions of the whole rather than of a separate ego, and that we are willing to be in that state of open-hearted compassion and love, and of the joy of being, and the silence of the mind, in which all are invited to realize their full potentialities. It's in that creation of an energy field in which there is unity and there is a transmission of that power of presence and love and joy that will bring about the revolutionary effects. And what happens in that information too is that the word revolution, which means a turning, right? A revolution, the earth revolves around the sun. It's a return to the origins of our consciousness at the highest level from which this whole cosmos derives. It's a return to the original undivided self that is the source of the multiplicity, that is the unification of all the beings in the cosmos. So that revolution is happening. It's not something that we must do or create. It is happening. It's a wave that is occurring. The only thing we can do is either get on the wave and ride it or reject it, and maybe it becomes a tsunami that overwhelms us. But that wave of a shift in consciousness is happening. I think this community is a symptom of it as much as it is helping to encourage that wave to get larger and stronger and more able to have an influence upon the general noosphere of the planet. But that consciousness, in order for us to ride that wave, requires that we make sacrifices of the ego's desires and its enjoyments and its addictions at too low a level. And it's the letting go of that through the advanced understanding of how we sustain a sense of well-being without those addictive props, and in which we lose the desire. It's like realizing you don't want to eat junk food anymore. We don't want junk experiences anymore. We don't want a junk ego life anymore. We want the highest, noblest, most beautiful, most royal and divine and majestic life we can live. A life that is a life of creative genius and a life of a joyous participation in communal activities that are fulfilling and bring a kind of heartful love to everyone, and a feeling of being foundations of this new world that's being created. That we are making the kind of crossing over from ego to spirit, to self-realization, for the sake of everyone, not just for the sake of an individual. It's the most unselfish thing one can do. But to reach that level where unselfishness is possible, there has to be the willingness to surrender that which is most comfortable, and to surrender the kinds of expertise that we have depended upon at an ego level to survive and manage our lives, in order to gain a higher level of power, authority, and capacity than we have now. But there's a gap that we have to cross. It's not that you go from one to the other. You have to cross that unknown, vast emptiness of consciousness before you find the fullness on the other side. And that requires trust, and it requires usually a kind of learning that is more gradual than instantaneous, because there are so many subtle aspects of reality that need to be internally recognized as an aha that changes our way of perceiving what is actually happening and enabling us to perceive interdimensionally and not just with the five senses. That extrasensory perception literally makes all the difference between whether we actually make it beyond this scrim, this veil of Maya, into the real, the noumenal, or whether we create or fall for a more pseudo-spiritual kind of false enlightenment. So this has to be real, authentic, and permanent. And it's the tools to make that happen that this retreat in December is about. And the kind of sharing between and among revolutionaries who want this, that energy will augment and speed up the process of the letting go and the acquisition of what is to be gained from the letting go of the ego, that will then be able to be a common and shared property of the entire field of those who participate, and then gradually of the planetary field as we disseminate that more widely through the complete empowerment of those who are fully recruited into the revolutionary dynamic. So it's this change of life from one form of consciousness to another that is our aim, and that will itself guide us to the achievement of that which is our real nature. It's already here. It's just a matter of perceiving it and of giving ourselves to it. But that requires a kind of heroic willingness to leap into the unknown and face one's own shadow, and even more, let's say, with more difficulty and resistance, facing the light, the power of the light that we have lost sight of, that is the core of our being. And the returning to that light will wash away all traces of the ego. It's that deliverance from the ego, that death and rebirth, that is the indication of a revolutionary who is truly empowered to achieve the bringing to birth of a new world order. Hope that helps.